Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? We're back already for another episode. The draft is getting near, so we need to finalize. We need to figure out what's going to happen. A lot of things, a lot of rumors are circling. So we are back with Mike Luchene. Is it Luchene or Luchene? I'm sorry.
It's Luchene, but you can call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late.
All right, Luchene. So we're back. Mike Luchene from NFLRoughDraft.com. Once again, probably the best site at predicting NFL success. So we're here today because Mike is a Raiders fan. We're going to build a horizontal big board for the Raiders, mainly focusing on the defense, and maybe we'll touch a couple of key areas in offense that are lacking. But before we get to that, Mike, today Ian Rappaport came out and said the Raiders front office are being very secretive. They even sent the head of college director of scouting, Sean Hirak, home. They're expected to make a unpredictable pick at number 4. What do you think is going to happen? Who could be so unpredictable that they want to keep it so low key?
Yeah, well, JB, that's an interesting question, and I really hope that that's not the case. The Raider fan in me says, hey, you've got 3 defensive linemen here. You've got Bosa, Josh Allen, and Quinnen Williams. And I know that Quinnen Williams is a 3 technique, and you've already got Maurice Hurst there. But, you could definitely – Paul Guenther would be creative enough to use both of those guys. If Kyler Murray's going 1, it just seems like a slam dunk that you get one of those guys. But if there's some sort of secretive surprise pick, and this is in fact true, the only thing that makes any kind of sense to me would be a quarterback, because I don't see how the Raiders would be concerned about a team trading ahead of them to get, anybody else other than the 3 guys that I mentioned. I've heard Devin White mentioned as a possibility, but is a team really going to trade to number 3 overall to draft an off-the-ball linebacker? I just don't see it. So I'm wondering if Mayock and Gruden like one of these quarterbacks and they're looking to pull the trigger at 4. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking as well. Could be the only thing so secretive that keep, but they just put out a draft guide and they have Derek Carr on the cover. I don't know why you would do that if you're taking a quarterback. So it's very interesting. But do you think it could be Ed Oliver?
I suppose it could be Ed Oliver. I don't know if Ed Oliver, maybe they're trying to put signals out there. They're going to draft a quarterback, so someone trades up, and now all of a sudden Quinnen Williams falls to 4 or Josh Allen falls to 4. I don't know.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I have no idea. Like, what could it be? I was thinking, if Kyler Murray, if Arizona doesn't take Kyler Murray, right, then he might fall all the way down to 4 if nobody trades up with the Jets. Would you take Kyler Murray if he falls and Nick Bosa, Quinnen Williams, and Josh Allen go 1, 2, and 3?
So, and that's a really interesting question. So, I don't know that Kyler Murray would get to 4.
Yeah.
Of course, the 49ers are not going to take a quarterback. Of course, the Jets are not going to take a quarterback. I think I saw a stat earlier this year that 8 of the last 9 quarterbacks picked in the first round, the team that selected them traded up to get them. And the 9th team was Baker Mayfield to the Browns, number 1 overall. So obviously they didn't need to trade to that spot.
Right.
Now, with Kyler Murray in particular, Charlie Casserly caught a lot of flack for talking about how he's heard that teams are concerned with his board work. I've heard the same thing, though. I don't mean to knock the guy. He's an electric football player, but when it comes to playing quarterback in the NFL, it takes a certain type of personality and it takes a certain level of commitment. And I'm not 100% sure Kyler Murray's got that. On top of the board work, I think back to this interview that he did with Dan Patrick.
Yeah.
On the Dan Patrick. Did you see that?
I saw that, and it really bothered me. I didn't think he would go first overall after watching that. I mean, he seemed like a little kid, just a high school kid. It didn't seem like a guy you would want leading your team in the National Football League.
Exactly. I mean, and I've heard that that's sort of who he is, and I don't know him, so I don't mean to make any sort of pass any sort of judgment in that way. But if he's this reserved guy who isn't sure if he's quite committed to football or baseball, or maybe right now he's committed to football, but who knows if that's going to change, down the road, and his board work is off, then that would scare me. The other thing, just with on the field, I love his arm. Obviously, you have to love his mobility in the pocket. I mean, and that's so big in today's NFL. I'm not worried about his height at all, but I am concerned with his build.
Yeah.
I think I might have mentioned this on the mock draft, but the mock draft podcast. But, he measured, I think, at 207 at the combine, or weighed at 207 at the combine, but I don't think he played at 207. And even if he did, 207 is not very big for an NFL quarterback. Forget about being able to run, smartly and slide down. You're going to take hits. And, if you've got these guys like Khalil Mack hitting you and you're 200 pounds, that is a concern. We heard that as a big knock on Teddy Bridgewater when he was in the draft.
Yeah.
And his knee injury was a little bit fluky, but, he got hurt. It was also a concern for Deshaun Watson, who's bigger than Kyler Murray. And Deshaun Watson's already been hurt. So I wouldn't take Kyler Murray. On top of that, and this is the last point, I'm sorry, I know this is kind of a long answer.
No, it's
the
fine.
reason I wouldn't take a quarterback at 4, I can make excuses for Derek Carr for the last 2 years. In 2017, Todd Downing looked over his head as far as calling an offense. We had guys running the same route on the same play. It was a mess. And everybody saw that. Now, last year, by the time you got to the middle of the season, I remember Brandon LaFell got hurt, and I remember thinking, this is our best receiver at this point. And that's not good. Marshawn was gone. Cooper was gone. He didn't have a lot of talent around him. He dropped back and would be getting hit. Brandon Parker couldn't block anyone. Colton Miller, whether he was hurt or not, who knows, but he couldn't block anyone. Assembly and Gabe Jackson were banged up. I think that this year they're starting to build an offense around him, and he's got no excuses. Let's see if he can return to form. Give him this year. If he fails again, well, then you look at the 2020 quarterback class, and you've got, Justin Herbert, you've got Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama, and Jake Fromm. And those are just the guys that we know about right now. There could always be someone who joins that fold too.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Give him weapons. Don't give him no excuses not to succeed, and let's see if he can make it to Vegas. So yeah, it's kind of. I hope it's all smokescreen when they say they're picking somebody that very secretive, because at number 4 there shouldn't be too many choices. It should be just the best players, but. Who knows? Who knows if it's T.J. Hawkinson or Devin White or whoever it is. But are you hearing anything about the Jets? Because that's the biggest. I think the draft starts with the Jets. Depends which direction they go.
Yeah, all I can say is if I were running the Jets, I would draft Josh Allen and not think twice about it, because if they're truly staying in a 3-4 defense, that team really needs an edge rusher. Josh Allen is a perfect fit at outside linebacker in a 3-4. I've heard Ed Oliver mentioned there. Ed Oliver only makes sense if they are moving to a 4-3. And maybe they are. maybe they've just been telling everybody that they're staying in a 3-4 just because, they want Ed Oliver, and they think other teams won't realize that they want him if they're telling everyone that they're staying in a 3-4. But Oliver's a little bit short. He's not really a fit anywhere on the line in a 3-4.
Right.
But we'll see. I would take Josh Allen if I were the Jets.
Gotcha. All right, let's move towards building our Raiders big board. Now, let's first list our top 5 needs. I think we can both agree that number one need is a pass rusher, right? Most likely
Yes.
at the edge.
I would argue that that's 1 and 2, but yeah, certainly 1.
yeah, definitely. What would you say number 2 is? Would you go with cornerback or would you go with somewhere?
Well, I really think that the Raiders need to come out of this draft with 2 edge players, a pass rusher and a strong side defensive end.
Yep.
So I would almost call those 2 separate spots. If we're going to combine them into one, though, and say they're going to take 1 edge player.
No, we can do 2.
think
One would be a pass rusher from anywhere, and the other one would be a strong side defensive end.
Right. And then maybe, so I sort of look we can get into the specifics later, but I sort of look at it as, you take that strong side defensive end and you have him and Arden Key on one side. Arden Key comes in on obvious passing downs until he gets his feet wet. And the other guys out there, the rest of the time. Right. And then on the other side, you have your edge rusher that we're talking about. I also think guard need. So I would draft a guard.
Would you say that's after the edge? I'm sorry, the strong side defensive end and a second pass rusher, third, you would go guard over a cornerback?
So, yes. Mm-hmm. And for a couple of reasons. So the reason I have guard up there as a need is just because Derek Carr needs a clean pocket. I think we've seen that. He really feels pressure sometimes even when it's not there. Yeah. I'm okay with Gabe Jackson moving over to left guard if that's what they are going to do. Denzel was pretty solid in limited time with us last year, but I don't know if it's wise to go into the year with him as the starter at right guard and no other option. I also, and this is the bigger reason why I think I would put guard up there, I also like this offensive line class, and I think it would be a good draft to address that position because of the strength there.
How do you feel about our cornerback situation? Then I'm sure in our LaMarcus Joyner would be playing the slot. He's good at it. Daryl Worley as cornerback 2. Are you comfortable with Daryl Worley in that spot?
I kind of like Daryl Worley. I thought he had a pretty solid year last year. He got beat on a few plays where it looked like he actually had pretty solid coverage, but they're just good throws. I love Garyon Conley. I mean, he's been very good when he's been healthy. They signed Nevin Lawson, who's playable. I think that he's not great, but I think that he's probably better depth than what the Raiders have had in a long time. Mm-hmm. I kind of look at cornerback as a little bit of a luxury. If they could get a guy like Greedy Williams and with one of those later first round picks, then I can see the reason to take him. And then at the same time, if they decided to go with Daryl Worley, I wouldn't look at it as a weakness. It's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, I don't see it as a big weakness, but it's just because it's such a pass-happy league. You always need pass rushers and you always need pass defenders. And it's hard to find those positions in free agency. You can get any other positions in free agency.